Gopal Tajanam Shri Radhe.
Hare Krishna, welcome to today's Srimad Bhagavatam class. Before we start the Srimad Bhagavatam class, let us do a simple Mangala Charana. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, Narayanam Namaskrityam Naram Chaim Narottamam Deving Saraswating Vyasam Tato Jayamudhirayet. Before reciting Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the only means of conquest, let us offer our respectful obeisances to the personality of Godhead, Lord Narayana, onto Nara Narayana Rishi, the supermost human being, onto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and onto Srila Vyasadeva, the author of Srimad Bhagavatam. Nastaparesha Vadareshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavate Uttama Sloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naistikihi. By regularly attending Srimad Bhagavatam class and by rendering service to the lotus feet of pure devotees, all that is troublesome in the heart is almost completely vanquished, and loving devotional service onto the lotus feet of Sri Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is praised with transcendental song and choice poetry, is established in one's heart as an irrevocable fact. Om Jnana Timirandasya Gena Gena Salakaya Chakshunam Latanyana Tasmai Sri Guruve Namaha. I was born in the darkness of ignorance, and my spiritual master illuminated my heart with the torch of transcendental knowledge. I offer my respectful obeisances unto him. Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Parasthaya Bhutale Srimate Japataka Swami Iti Namne Nama Acharya Padaya Nitai Kripapadayane Gorakadadamdaya Nirgaram Tani Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Sri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Welcome everyone to today's Srimad Bhagavatam class. Today we are reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 11, Chapter 12, chapter entitled Beyond Renunciation and Knowledge. So this chapter is the continuation of a conversation between Uddhava and Krishna. So in the previous chapter we heard how Uddhava asked the question of how is it that the living entity, the Jiva Atma, sometimes it is described as being Satchit Ananda Vigraha. It is described as being eternal and full of knowledge and always blissful. And at the same time, the same living entity is described as being entangled in this cycle of birth and death, repeated birth and death, repeated birth, old age, disease and death. So in reply, Krishna explained the nature of the living entity, the nature of the Supreme Lord, and the characteristics of those who are liberated and the characteristics of those who are entrapped in this repeated birth and death in this material world. And also Krishna explained in great detail actually the process of devotional service, whereby he emphasized the signs of deity worship. This is especially very, very important for us in this day and age. Deity worship is important simply because it engages our mind intelligence, our body, our senses in performing activities that are mystical in nature, that purifies the senses, purifies the mind, purifies our consciousness. And only through this purified consciousness could we see what is what and what is not. So at the end of this chapter, the last chapter, Krishna told Uddhava, my dear Uddhava, O beloved of the Yadu dynasty, because you are my servant, well-wisher and friend, I shall now speak to you the most confidential knowledge. Please hear as I explain this great mystery to you. So this confidential knowledge is chapter 12 of Canto 11, Beyond Renunciation and Knowledge. So in this chapter, Krishna will reveal the secret of how to advance very, very quickly in spiritual life. And the secret is association of pure devotees. As simple as that. When we read and we speak, it seems simple, but there's a great science behind that. Very, very great science behind that. And Krishna now is going to give an introduction. This chapter is the introduction to the glories of associating with his pure devotees. So let's start with text 1 and 2 of Canto 11, chapter 12. The personality of Godhead said, "My dear Uddhava, by associating with my pure devotees, one can destroy one's attachment for all objects of material sense gratification. Such purifying association brings me under the control of my devotees. One may perform the Ashtanga Yoga system, engage in philosophical analysis of the elements of material nature, practice non-violence and other ordinary principles of piety, chant the Vedas, perform penance, take to the renounced order of life, execute sacrificial performance, and dig wells, plant trees, and perform other public welfare activities, give in charity, carry out severe vows, worshipping the demigods, chant confidential mantras, visit holy places, or accept major and minor disciplinary injunction. But even by performing such activities, one does not bring me under his control." So this verse is actually very, very, very wonderful. Krishna clearly states here that even if you were to perform all the ritualistic ceremonies that there are in the Vedas, like he mentions here, performing Ashtanga Yoga system, engaging philosophical analysis of the elements of material nature, practices non-violence, and goes on and on and on. All these different rituals actually, as we must see it as different remedies for different material diseases. Okay, but Krishna says the point of all of these rituals, the point of all is to create a situation whereby you become purified, your consciousness become purified, and you begin to see things as they are. What do I mean by that? What it means is that you begin to see things around you as being related to Krishna. You begin to see you not as the body but as the eternal spirit soul. You begin to see that all of these are coming, this whole material world is an expansion of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And that is the main point here. All these rituals and all these processes actually is to bring one to the stage of being aware, being purified in your consciousness, so that you are aware why you should perform loving devotional service simply to satisfy Krishna. That is the goal. Okay, and it is especially stated here that Krishna likes all these ceremonies, all these things that you perform that purify you. Krishna likes it, but to a lesser extent. Why? Because the ultimate goal is not to be attached to these rituals, but to be attached to the lotus feet of Sri Krishna. That is the goal. And also it is mentioned here in the purport that all these rituals are actually for the purpose of gradually elevating one to the platform of devotional service, whereupon one is able to directly worship the absolute truth. And here it is said here that when one is in the platform of the absolute truth, transcendental Brahma Bhuta platform, the results awarded for fasting continuously for 1 month on 6 different occasions can easily be achieved simply by accepting a handful of rice offered to Lord Vishnu. This facility is especially offered in Kali Yuga. So this is a verse here that actually emphasizes the fact that that deity worship is actually the most conducive form of worship for the general masses. Most of us, we are all attached to family. We have husband, we have wife, we have children, we have jobs. So simply by everyday offering a grain of rice, cooked rice to Lord Vishnu, that grain of rice, if we eat as prasad, that is equivalent to continuously fasting for 1 month on 6 different occasions. You see, how much you can save your time. So being in such a exalted position, you can easily achieve it by associating with the devotees of the Supreme Lord who are practicing devotional service very, very seriously. Okay, there's a whole science behind how we should associate with devotees, and it is mentioned here. All these ritualistic ceremonies must remain as auxiliary relationship to the supreme process of satsanga, or associating with pure devotees who hear and chant the glories of the Lord. And there's a warning here. If one offends the Lord's devotees and does not learn to associate with them, Lord Vishnu personally places barriers to the path of such a person so that he may or may not enter into the Lord's company. So we must be very, very careful with how we associate with the devotees of the Supreme Lord. The devotees of the Supreme Lord, they are the gateway for us to quickly achieve liberation. And at the same time, if we offend them, if we misbehave, they become an obstacle for our advancement in spiritual life. So we must be very, very careful, and that's the reason why we all should know what is the proper way to behave around such great personalities, how to behave around them, what kind of attitudes to take. And that is the subject matter of Vaishnava etiquette. Let's read text number 3 to number 6. In every yoga, many living entities entangled in the mode of passion and ignorance gain the association of my devotees. Thus, such living entities such as the Daityas, Rakshasas, birds, beasts, Gandharvas, Apsaras, Nagas, Siddhas, Charanas, Guhyakas, and Vidyaharas, as well as such low-class human beings as the Vaishya, Sudra, women and others, were able to achieve my supreme abode. Vrittasura, Prahlad Maharaj and others like them also achieved my abode by association with my devotees, as did personalities such as Vasparva, Bali Maharaj, Banasura, Maya, Vibhishana, Sugriva, Hanuman, Jambavan, Gandharva, Gajendra, Jatayu, Tulandhara, Dharma, Vyakta, Kubja, and the gopis in Vrindavan, and the wives of the Brahmanas who were performing sacrifice. So here Krishna is explaining that even though there are many kind of living entities in this material world, like the ones that he mentions here, and Daityas, Rakshasas, birds, beasts, Gandharvas, that actually are very much in the mode of passion and ignorance. These living entities, they will find it very, very, very difficult to even approach Vedic knowledge, to approach the Vedas. What to speak of approaching pure devotees? They find it very difficult. But by the mercy of these pure devotees who take great pains and great difficulty into trying to reach these living entities by trying to give them some mercy. And how do they do that? Actually, we can see that happening right now in this day, in age of Kali Yuga. By the mercy of Srila Prabhupada, through this International Society of Krishna Consciousness, devotees are going around. They go around, they perform Harinam Sankirtan. Harinam Sankirtan is they go to the streets with musical instruments and they will sing the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. By simply singing this Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, all those living entities, they get a chance to hear the holy name of Krishna. They get a chance to hear the holy name of Krishna. Simply by hearing this name of Krishna, it purifies their senses and it gives them the chance, to try to render some service to devotees, so that they develop some kind of attachment, some kind of profit will come in their way. So this is one of the glories of associating with devotees. And also in this verse it is mentioned that devotees are not only found among only Brahmanas. No, devotees are found everywhere. Good example of this is mentioned here: Vrittasura, Prahlad Maharaj, Bali Maharaj. These are all this Banasura, Maya, Vibhishan. These are all personalities that were born in the demonic class of living entities. And these people are pure devotees. Of course, for those of you who know the story of Narasimha Maharaj will know the personalities like Prahlad Maharaj and Bali Maharaj. Let's continue on. Text number 7. The person I have mentioned did not undergo serious study of Vedic literatures, nor did they worship great saintly persons, nor did they execute severe vows or austerities. Simply by association with me and my devotees, they achieve me. So this one is a very nice verse. Krishna explains that earlier in earlier chapters, Krishna did mention that the single factor that determines a living entity who is entangled in this material world, and this same entity, how he can become liberated, is by through transcendental knowledge. And here Krishna is saying these living entities, all these demons and these all these living entities in the mode of passion and ignorance, they did not undergo any serious study of Vedic literatures, but simply they worship the great persons who execute severe austerities and vows. Simply by association with my devotees, they achieve me. So here Krishna says that this association of devotees is so important. So some of you might be wondering, so what is this association? How do we know who to associate with? It's a very good question. The general rule here is that we should associate with pure devotees. Okay, pure devotees here mean that the devotee who has surrendered his mind, his thoughts, his words and his action simply for the pleasure of Krishna. He only does this only, he doesn't do anything else. That is a pure devotee by simple definition. And if in the absence of such a pure devotee, what we must do is we must try to associate with devotees who are at least minimum at our same level. And we must associate with devotees who are above us. Above us means if let's say we are Kanishta Adhikari, Kanishta here means we are neophyte devotees, we are still new in Krishna consciousness, we should associate with those devotees who are above us, like Madhyam or Uttama Adhikari devotees. So some of you might be thinking, how do we know who's a Uttama, who's a Madhyam Adhikari devotee? The simple answer to that is you have to read the scriptures, you have to read Srimad, Bhagavatam. And this brings me to the third point. The third point is, just in case on a daily basis you might not have it at your disposal, a pure devotee, who might be your next door neighbor or somewhere nearby, sometimes you might not have. So Krishna says there is two kinds of Bhagavat. Bhagavat here means pure devotees. There's two kinds. One is book Bhagavat, and the other one is person Bhagavat. So the person might not be so available, but the book is always available. Everybody can own a set of Srimad Bhagavatam. Everybody can get a Bhagavad Gita as it is. Simply by constantly associating with Krishna through these literatures like Srimad Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita, one gets the association of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So in the purport here, there's a very interesting statement. He says here that pure devotees can advance in Krishna consciousness by his own association, since simply by associating with his own activities and consciousness, he associates with the Lord. So here is mentioned that, let's say a pure devotee, he wants to advance more in Krishna consciousness. So how does he advance? Everybody wants his association, but who is he going to associate with to advance in Krishna consciousness? So this one is a statement by Srila Sridhar Swami. He says there, since simply by associating with his own activities in consciousness, he associates with the Supreme Lord. Simply by associating with the activities that Krishna and his pure devotees recommend us to do, like deity worship, like chanting our 16 rounds, by reading Srila Prabhupada's books, by eating Krishna Prasadam, by performing deity worship, all of these activities, simply by associating with these activities itself will purify them. Okay, let's continue on. Text number 8. The inhabitants of Vrindavan, including the gopis, cows and unmoving creatures such as the twin Arjuna trees, animals, living entities with stunted consciousness such as bushes and thicks, and snakes like Kaliya, all achieve the perfection of life by unalloyed love for me, and thus very easily achieve me. Here Krishna is giving the best example anyone can think of. Vrindavan, the Vaikuntha in this earth itself. In Krishna is saying here, the gopis, cows, unmoving creatures, all of them achieve the perfection of human life by rendering pure devotional service unto him, simply because they associate with pure devotees. And it is explained here that the gopis, they don't know anything other than Krishna. Even though these gopis, they have their own families, they have husbands, they have children, they have family, this and that, but in their heart they don't even know anything other than Krishna. And it is also explained that those who take Lord Krishna as everything are situated in the highest process of spiritual realization. Therefore, the Lord has not bothered to mention in this verse those who achieve perfection through mixed process. So here Krishna is explaining that all these devotees in Vrindavan, they achieve the perfection of human life simply because they are practicing the highest kind of self-realization, the highest form of spiritual realization. And Krishna here, he did not mention about all this mixed bhakti like karma yoga, jnana yoga, stanga yoga. These are all mixed. He did not mention it, but rather he says here that he emphasizes that we should associate with pure devotees who actually have ambition to follow in the footsteps of these devotees in Vrindavan. That is what Krishna is saying here. We should develop the ambition. Just like a businessman, he has ambition to become millionaire. Actor has ambition to become a famous actor. A scientist, he wants to he has ambition to invent something that can save human life and all that kind of thing. Similarly, actually these are all temporary ambitions. The real ambition is what is related to your eternal nature. So Krishna is saying here, if you want to have ambition, means have ambition to follow in the footsteps of his pure devotees. And the way you can do that is simply by reading scriptures like Srimad Bhagavatam, where Krishna reveals the glories of his pure devotees. Let's go to text number 9. Even though one engages with great endeavor in mystic yoga system, philosophical speculation, charity, vows, penance, ritualistic sacrifices, teaching of Vedic mantras to others, personal studies of the Vedas, or the renounced order of life, still one cannot achieve me. So here Krishna is saying that there are many fast and penances one can perform. There's one particular one called Chandrayana. This fasting is what? No. Is one intake of food is diminished by one mouthful every day as the moon wanes and increases in the same way as the moon waxes. This is one kind of fasting. Every day the moon becomes waxing. You will eat less and less and less and less until you are fasting on a dark moon night. And then when the moon is waxing, you start to increase your number of mouthfuls. So this is a very severe kind of fasting. And then of course there is the study of Sanskrit Vedic mantras. It's all very, very difficult. And the conclusion that Krishna is saying here is these occupational activities that a man performs according to his own position is only so much useless labor if they do not provoke attraction for the message of the personality of Godhead. All this hard work is useless if it doesn't invoke in you the love for Krishna. Text number 10. The residents of Vrindavan, headed by the gopis, were always completely attached to me with deepest love. Therefore, when my uncle Akrur brought my brother Balaram and me to the city of Mathura, the residents of Vrindavan suffered extreme mental distress because of the separation from me and could not find any other source of happiness. So the best example here is these gopis of Vrindavan. When these gopis, when they were with Krishna, they felt the time they spent with Krishna was like a blink of an eye. But the moment when Akrur came and took Krishna and Balaram to Mathura, the separation they felt was like, the length of time they experienced was like, the 1 day of Lord Brahma. 1 day of Lord Brahma is 4,300,000. Yes. is 4,320,000,000 years times 1,000. That is how the gopis felt. This is how perfect these gopis are. Text number 11. Dear Uddhava, all of these nights that the gopis spent with me, they are most dearly beloved in the land of Vrindavan, seemed to them to pass in less than a moment. Bereft of my association, however, the gopis felt that the same nights dragged on forever, as if each night were equal to a day of Brahma. Text number 12. My dear Uddhava, just as great sages in yoga trance merge into self-realizations like a river merging into the ocean and are thus not aware of the material names and forms, similarly, the gopis of Vrindavan were so completely attached to me within their minds that they could not think of their own bodies or of their world or of their future lives. Their entire consciousness was simply bound up in me. So this is a description of the perfection of devotional service. These gopis, it says here that they don't know anything other than Krishna. They don't even know that they have a body. They don't even know they have anything around them. They don't even know they have a future. This is the perfection of our human life. Whenever Krishna plays his flute in the middle of the night, these gopis will just forget everything and they will run to Krishna in the dead of night, so that they can just be with him. They can please him in whatever way, you know. A lot of people think this is very sinful. How can people's wife run to the jungle, go and play, dance at night and all that. So this is a mundane, materialistic point of view. Those who say this, they don't understand there is another reality. That is the spiritual reality, the eternal reality, the reality that is more real than what we think we are in this world now, actually. So the answer to this question is simple. These gopis are part and parcel of Krishna. They are not different from him. So if part and parcel goes back to the original source, what is wrong with that? So these gopis were all very much united with Krishna within their heart. So they wanted to please Krishna. The reason why they went to meet Krishna in the jungle was because they simply wanted to please him. That was their constitutional position. And guess what? We are also Jiva Atmas. We are also living entities. We are part and parcel of Krishna. And that is our constitutional position also. Jivara Surapohoy Krishna Nitya Das. Our constitutional position is being an eternal servant of Krishna. We should serve Krishna in whatever way. So it is mentioned here is that, in our temporary lives, we are serving only illusion. This illusion is binding our heart and causing us pain. But instead, if we were to engage our time, our mind, our energies, our senses in simply trying to serve Krishna, the reservoir of all pleasure and beauty, then what will happen is our heart will expand unlimitedly in the ocean of transcendental bliss. Everything in this material world is temporary, but everything in the spiritual world is eternal. Everything in this material world is shrinking. Everything is changing all the time. Nothing is becoming better. Everything is becoming worse and worse and worse. But in the spiritual world, everything is expanding. Everything is becoming better. The very definition of bliss is that once you experience bliss, the next time you experience bliss is twice as much, and it keeps doubling. It keeps growing. So this is the definition of bliss. Text number 13. All those hundreds of thousands of gopis understand me to be their most charming lover and adherently desire me in that way, were unaware of my actual position, yet by intimately associating with me, these gopis attain me, the supreme absolute truth. Although we cannot imitate the gopis in what they do, but what we can do is we can try to follow their superb example of practicing Krishna consciousness. Their consciousness is beyond single-minded. And naturally, they take shelter of Lord Krishna and achieve the highest perfection of life. So we also can do that. We can follow in the footsteps of the gopis. Let's read text number 14 to 15. Therefore, my dear Uddhava, abandon the Vedic mantras as well as the procedures of supplementary Vedic literatures and their positive and negative injunctions. Disregard that which has been heard and that which is to be heard, Simply take shelter of me alone, for I am the Supreme Personality of Godhead, situated within the hearts of all conditioned souls. Take shelter of me wholeheartedly, and by my mercy be free from all fear in all circumstances. So here again, Krishna is emphasizing the fact, all these ritualistic, different ritualistic activities that we find in the sastras is for the purpose of bringing us to the perfection of our human life. That is by performing devotional service, bhakti yoga. And that's what Krishna is saying here. Krishna says, abandon the Vedic mantras as well as the procedures and supplementary Vedic literatures, their positive, negative injunction, disregard that which has been heard and that which is to be heard. Simply take shelter of me alone, for I am the Supreme Personality of Godhead, situated within the hearts of all conditioned souls. Take shelter of me wholeheartedly, and by my grace be free from fear in all circumstances. Another way to understand this is that all these different rituals, sacrifices, mantras, they are actually Krishna. They are actually Krishna. We don't realize it. We mistakenly will chant and we will perform these mantras with the view of trying to enjoy this material world, trying to become the enjoyer, which is not our constitutional position. Our constitutional position is to be a servant of Krishna. So once we start to realize that and we have faith in that wholeheartedly, we begin to realize that Krishna is everything. Krishna is everything. All the mantras are Krishna. All the rituals are Krishna. All the auspiciousness is Krishna. Everything that you ever desire in your whole existence is Krishna. So this is what the Krishna is saying here. There is no need to entangle oneself in unauthorized sectarian ritualistic injunction or prohibitions. One should simply surrender to Krishna, following the example of Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who is Lord Krishna himself. By the authorized, regulated process of Bhakti Yoga, Krishna consciousness can easily be achieved spiritual perfection. Text number 16. Sri Uddhava said, O Lord of all masters of mystic power, O Lord of all masters of mystic power, I have heard your words, but the doubt in my heart does not go away. Thus my mind is bewildered. So now here Uddhava is expressing, he's asking Krishna one doubt, He says, I have heard all that you have said. You started with, description of or the characteristics of pure devotee, the description of those who are entangled in this material world, all the processes that you can perform, karma yoga, jnana yoga, astanga yoga, all the sankhya yoga, so many processes. Uddhava is saying, I still do not know which one I should perform. I am confused. So Krishna in reply, he says in text 17, the Supreme Personality of Godhead said, my dear Uddhava, the Supreme Lord gives lives to every living being and is situated within the heart along with the life air and primal sound vibrations. The Lord can be perceived in his subtle form within the heart by one's mind. Since the Lord controls the mind of everyone, even great demigods like Lord Shiva, the Supreme Lord also assumes a gross form as the various sounds of Vedas, composed of short and long vowels and consonants of different innotations. So here Krishna is going to give a very, very complete answer. So this is text number 17. Let me read text number 18. When sticks of kindling wood are vigorously rubbed together, heat is produced by contact with air and a spark of fire appears. Once the fire is kindled, ghee is added and the fire blazes. Similarly, I became manifest in the sound vibration of the Vedas. Text number 19. The functions of the working senses, the organ of speech, hand, the legs, the genitals, the anus, the functions of knowledge acquiring senses, the nose, tongue, eyes, skin and ears, along with the function of the subtle senses of mind, intelligence and consciousness and false ego, as well as the function of the subtle pradhana and the interactions of the three modes of material nature, all these should be understood as my material manifested forms. Text number 20. When many seeds are planted in an agricultural field, innumerable manifestation of trees, bushes, vegetables and so on will arise from a single source, the soil. Similarly, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who gives life to all and is eternal, originally exists beyond the scope of the cosmic manifestation. In the course of time, however, the Lord, who is the resting place of the three modes of nature and the source of the universal lotus flower in which the cosmic manifestation takes place, divides his material potencies and thus appears to be manifested in innumerable forms, although he is one. Text number 21. Just as a woven cloth rests on an expansion of lengthwise and crosswise thread, similarly the entire universe is expanded on the lengthwise and crosswise potency of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and is situated within him. The conditioned soul has been accepting material bodies since time immemorial, and these bodies are like great trees sustaining one's material existence. Just as a tree first blossoms and then produces fruit, similarly the tree of material existence, one's material body, produces the various results of material existence. Text number 22 to 23. This tree of material existence has 2 seeds, hundreds of roots, 3 lower trunks and 5 upper trunks. It produces 5 flavors and has 11 branches and a nest made by 2 birds. The tree is covered by 3 types of bark, give 2 fruits and extends to the sun. Those lusty after material enjoyment and dedicated to family life enjoys one of the tree's fruits, and the swan-like man in the renounced order of life enjoys the other fruit. One who, with the help of the bona fide spiritual master, can understand this tree to be a manifestation of the potency of the supreme truth, appears in many forms, actually knows the meaning of the Vedic literatures. So until text 23, Krishna is answering Uddhava's question by describing to him actually this whole material manifestation, including the sound vibrations. The sound vibration that he is describing here as being the Vedas. The Vedas means transcendental knowledge. Before Kali Yuga, before 5,000 years ago, Vedic knowledge was only in the form of sound. It was passed from guru to disciple through guru parampara, the sampradaya, and this is how the knowledge and the transcendental knowledge was passed from guru to disciple, and it has reached until Kali Yuga. So what happened was Kali Yuga was about to start, and Krishna realized that this sound vibration cannot exist in Kali Yuga. Why? Because all the human beings, their intelligence will be very, very low. Their intelligence level will drop, and their memory will be very poor. So nobody will be able to remember all the sound vibrations. So therefore, Krishna manifested himself as Srila Vyasadeva, the literary incarnation of Krishna. Srila Vyasadeva came and he wrote everything on paper for us so that we can read. Every time we forget, we can read. And from this manifestation, Krishna describes it is from the sound vibration of these Vedas that this material world was created. And from this creation, what happens is the living entity here, he will either enjoy this material world or use it to give himself liberation. So this verse that I just read, let me read the explanation in the purport. The 2 seeds of the tree are sinful and pious activities. The hundreds of roots of the living entity is innumerable material desires, while chain them to the material existence. The 3 lower trunks represent the 3 modes of material nature, and the 5 upper trunks represents the 5 gross material elements. The tree produces 5 flavors, which is sound, form, touch, taste and aroma, and has 11 branches, the 5 working senses, the 5 knowledge acquiring senses, and the mind. The 2 birds, namely the individual soul and the super soul, have made their nest in this tree, and the 3 type of barks are air, bile and mucus, the constitution element of the body, and the 2 fruits of this tree are happiness and distress. So earlier, if you can still remember, Krishna described that those who want to enjoy this material life, and in Kali Yuga, these are the grihasthas, the married couples. They have the license lah. They, in Vedic terms, they have the license to enjoy material life. So those who want to enjoy material life, they taste the bitter, the painful effects of this material world. But those who are renounced, those who are intelligent and those who are renounced here means that they see everything as Krishna's property. They don't unnecessarily waste their time chasing after sense gratification. They don't waste their time by speculating about what they can do to enjoy more and more. Instead, what they do is they utilize everything that they have around them simply to perform activities that are pleasing to Krishna. How do they know what is pleasing to Krishna? What they do, number one, is they read Srimad Bhagavatam, number one. Number two is they associate with devotees who actually practice this bhakti yoga. These devotees, they have direct contact with Krishna. Krishna will communicate through them and he says, you do this, I'll be very pleased. So these devotees hearing these messages, they just want to perform activities that are pleasing to Krishna. So in the purport, the same purport in this text 22 to 23, it is said here, if one can see the Supreme Lord as the absolute cause of everything, then his knowledge is perfect. Otherwise, if one is entangled in Vedic rituals or Vedic speculation without knowledge of the Supreme Lord, he has not achieved the perfection of life. So this text number 24 is the answer to Uddhava's question. Text number 24. With steady intelligence, you should develop unalloyed devotional service by careful worship of the spiritual master. And with the sharpened axe of transcendental knowledge, you should cut off the subtle material covering of the soul. Upon realizing the Supreme Personality of Godhead, you should then give up the axe of analytical knowledge. So Krishna is explaining to Uddhava here that you should steady your intelligence and develop unalloyed devotional service. How do you do that? You develop the desire to follow in the footsteps of the pure devotees. And the topmost devotee here are the gopis of Vrindavan. It is up to you who you want to pick, because I have met devotees who have aspirations to follow in the footsteps of Yashoda Mai. Some want to follow in the footsteps of Nanda Maharaj. Others want to follow in the footsteps of Krishna's friends like Sridama. Some want to follow in the footsteps of gopis like Vishaka. So these are all very highly exalted personalities. They have practiced devotional service to an extent where they develop a certain taste for a certain kind of devotional service. This actually, if you want to see, you can go to Vrindavan. Vrindavan is celebrated in all the Vedic scriptures because in Vrindavan they practice a certain kind of bhakti yoga called Raga Nuga Bhakti. Raga Nuga Bhakti literally means spontaneous loving service. They spontaneously love Krishna at every moment, at every time. It's very fascinating to watch the Vrajavasis actually. So Krishna is saying here that one should develop this unalloyed devotional service by carefully worshipping the spiritual master. So the spiritual master is one who gives you shows you the way how you can achieve your meditation, your obsession with Krishna. With the sharpened axe of transcendental knowledge, you should cut off the subtle material covering of the soul. So our material body is earth, water, wind, fire and ether. Okay, and this is the gross elements, and we are covered by three subtle elements, which is mind, intelligence and ego. So these coverings actually are the ones that bind us to this material world. So when we engage everything, that means the material body that we have, which is made of earth, water, fire, air, ether, and also the subtle elements which is constituted by mind, intelligence and ego, when we use these elements, everything, that means we use whatever that we have, which is our material body with the subtle elements, we use them to serve Krishna. We use them until they become, totally purified, totally transformed. What happens is the soul becomes detached from this material body. You will feel like you are floating on air. There is some description I have read somewhere where pure devotees describe that once they reach a certain stage of self-realization, they feel as if they are first of all, they're constantly blissful. Brahma Bhuta Prasan Atma. They become totally joyful, number one. And then no sati na kansati. They don't lament and they don't hanker for anything. Lamentation means they lament for something that has happened in the past. They lost something or something bad happened. Somebody scolded them, somebody talked bad about them. That is the past. That is lamentation. Hankering is something. The hankering is you want something in the future. Oh, I want this, I want that, I want this. So this is lamentation and hankering. This lamentation and hankering totally stop. Why? Because you realize I got nothing to do in this material world. What is this? I hanker this. I feel bad about this. Feel bad about that. All this is nonsense. This is to do with this temporary material body. But now I realize I'm not this temporary material body. Brahma Buddha Prasan Atma no sati na kansati sarva sarvesu bhutesu. You begin to see everything in their proper light. You see everything material in the same. You see material things same value. No, actually they actually got no value until and unless it is used for the pleasure of Krishna. It is only useful. This material world and everything in it is useful only if you can use it to serve Krishna. You can use it somehow to serve Krishna. So this is actually the answer that Uddhava got from Krishna. Upon realizing the Supreme Personality of Godhead, you should give up the acts of analytical knowledge. Very interestingly, there's a verse by Lord Shiva. He says there, what was the verse? The verse goes like this: Aradhanam sarvesham Vishnu aradhanam param tasmat paritaranam devi tadiya samarchanam. So Lord Shiva is telling that of all worship, the topmost worship is the worship of Lord Vishnu. Higher than the worship of Lord Vishnu is the worship of that which is intimately connected to Lord Vishnu. That is the spiritual master. That is the pure devotee. Simply by worshipping this spiritual master, one gets the perfection of human life. So whenever we associate with pure devotees or spiritual masters, we should be very, 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 very careful. Unfortunately, I have seen with my own two eyes how some disciples they will talk about their guru as if their guru is like an ordinary man, which is wrong actually. The guru is not an ordinary man. He might be suffering from material bodily difficulties. Yes, that is true. But that actually makes the spiritual master more charming. If the spiritual master was like a Superman, everybody will not take him that seriously. They will be constantly asking him, hey, please give me this, give me that, give me this, give me that. Why? Because you are a Superman. But when the spiritual master, he comes across as being human just like you, yet he is detached from his suffering, it only gives encouragement for the sincere devotees to pursue spiritual life. And the disciple should never ever make the mistake of considering the spiritual master to be an ordinary person. Unfortunately, I have heard disciples speak of their spiritual master in terms of, oh, my spiritual master, I think he made a mistake. He didn't know what he was talking about. He comes from a different culture. I'm from different culture. They talk like this, unfortunately, that is very, very sad to see. But Krishna is telling Uddhava here, never make such mistake. One should develop unalloyed devotional service by carefully worshipping the spiritual master. So this is the advice given by Krishna to Uddhava. So this brings the conclusion to this chapter on the glories of associating with the devotees of the Supreme Lord. Hare Krishna.
Radhe Gopal Bhajan